So, Karen, longtime listeners have heard us talk about my spontaneous past life regression during a Reiki healing session.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
I do.
Yeah. But then what if the act of taking a Reiki class
Mm-hmm.
did not spontaneously bring up a past life regression, but rather it opened up all of the C's for you? Remember what the C's are?
No.
Clairvoyant,
Oh,
clairsentient,
those C's.
clairaudient,
I was thinking about
claircognizant.
oceans.
Yeah. that too.
I mean, there's a sea of modalities.
Right, there are.
So that's what I was
Ooh.
thinking of.
We need to trademark that, I think. Yeah. But anyway, it was suddenly you could not only see dead people and angels, but you could actually help heal people with their help. How cool would that be?
That would be amazing.
Right? Well, wonder no more. Because on this episode, we're talking to someone that can answer all of the what if questions and so much more.
Woohoo.
Welcome to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
So we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something.
Anything.
That will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Hey everyone, I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And we are thrilled that you could once again join us on our journey of discovery. Today's guest is well known in much more than just psychic circles for her ability to communicate with angels, dead people, animals, and fairies. Now, she's even gone as far as to consult with doctors who've tried to figure out what the heck is going on with her and how she does what she does. We have a lot to talk to her about, so please, let's welcome Ellen Malloy to the show. Ellen, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, gosh, you're so welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we are excited for lots of reasons.
Lots of reasons.
We will announce later, but anyway, let's just set the table first and foremost, right? A lot of people out there know your story, and it's amazing, but our audience may not. So I wonder if you could just share how you became who you are.
Sure. So I was tooling through life, just living kind of normal. I worked in the tech industry. I was a business analyst and a project manager, going through life thinking everything was just so. And then I became sick. And it was in my late 20s, and I was going from doctor to doctor trying to figure out what was wrong with me. No one could diagnose me. No one knew what was wrong. But they could see all these problems. I had a gazillion problems. So I was dating a guy in California, he's from California. They do things a little different out there than they do here in the area where I grew up in. Just, conservative. I'm in the Richmond, Virginia area. So he said, hey, why don't you try some alternatives? And I said, alternatives to what? To healthcare? And he said, yes. And I was like, okay. I said, well, what would those be? Because I don't have any idea. He said, like chiropractic or acupuncture or herbs or, I'm thinking, I haven't, all I knew with chiropractic was I thought people went there after they had car accidents. I had no idea anybody went there for any other reason. So anyway, I didn't know what to do, but I always said, you know what? I've been to about 25 doctors. No one knows what's wrong with me. What the heck? Let's try some of this oddball stuff. So one of the things we tried was that he knew this woman in California who was, I don't know exactly how she defined herself, but she was an intuitive person. And we called her on the phone and she was kind of doing her thing. I had never talked to anyone intuitive. Well, I'd met a few people because I went to art school, so kind of new agey stuff and artsy fartsy stuff goes hand in hand, you know what I mean? But I really never taught, trying to get a reading with anybody or hadn't, wasn't my cup of tea. So she says, you must do the Reiki. I'm like, the Reiki? I don't know what this is. This is the year 2001. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is like a martial art or something, Tai Chi, Kung Fu, I have no idea. So she is just like, you have to do this thing, right? She's adamant. This is you must do this. I'm like, oh, okay. So I think, well, all right, I get off the phone call with her. I get on Google and I look it up and I'm just utterly baffled to discover that it's a Japanese form of laying on hands. I had no idea anyone outside evangelical churches laid on hands. And so I'm thinking, well, this is super far-fetched for me being this, whatever I was, conventional corporate person, and so I'm like, okay, well, this is weird. I don't even know I don't even know if anybody in Richmond does this, not to mention me do it. So I did what I do about everything, is I just prayed. I just said, okay, God, this is very not my norm, and I will do this if this is what you want me to do. You want me to do this Reiki thing? Fine. So we find out about 2 weeks later, my boyfriend, the California guy, comes home from his Kung Fu class and says, you're not going to believe it, but the Kung Fu instructor is a Reiki master, and he's coming to our apartment this weekend, and you are going to learn Reiki. And I'm like, what? I'm like, oh my God. So he comes and he does, explains it. My best friend, I rope him into this thing, and we rope in another student, Kung Fu student. And so it's like the group of us, and he does his class, and I think it is phenomenal. Like I don't know what I was expecting, because I had no idea how this was going to be, but I could feel the energy. I thought it was lovely. It was peaceful. It was great. So that was all super cool. And then shortly after that, I end up getting really lucky and get diagnosed, and I find out I have severe gluten intolerance. Like, I'm a notch below a celiac. Genetically, if you will. So that's what was wrong with me. So life is going on. I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. Health is good. I'm doing my Reiki. I took a meditation class. I like that. Like, life is good. My boyfriend proposes. We get married in January. The Kung Fu instructor says, your wedding gift is Reiki level 2. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, because I took the level 1, and that was in 2001. This is 2003. And so I'm just like, it's a month after we're married, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is cool. So we go to the Kung Fu guy's place, and he does the whole thing, and it's all interesting. But I realized very quickly that level 2 is to work with other people. And I'm thinking, well, no way, no how am I ever working with anybody else. It's not happening. I'm a corporate executive. I'm not even telling anybody I meditate, because, that's like too weird. Except for my friend who did yoga, I told her. But anyway, so we're doing our class, and it's cool and all. And then we get to the attunement. And for those of you who don't know what attunement is, it's a sacred ceremony where they make your body a conduit for healing energy. So he goes to do this thing, and he had done it before. So I was expecting kind of the same thing, which was sort of this peaceful, spiritual thing. Nope. He does it, and I feel really weird. And I'm thinking, food poisoning? I don't know. I'm feeling really strange. I'm feeling kind of dizzy, lightheaded. So we drive home, and I put the seat back, and I'm just like, oh, I just feel so strange. And we get home, and to my extreme shock, I can see dead people. And so this is really super weird. My husband of 1 month, can also see them too for a couple days. And then it started to go away for him, but it didn't go away for me. And we called the Kung Fu guy. We're like, we have a problem here. We're seeing dead people. This is like,
we got a problem.
And nobody mentioned this in the Reiki. Like, this was not part of the handbook. So I'm just like, what are we going to do with this? And he says, gosh, well, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm not psychic, and nobody I know who does Reiki is psychic, and I've never known anyone to become psychic from doing Reiki. He said, I think it's just part of your life path. Good luck with that. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm like, dude, this is your answer. I'm like, can you undo that? He's like, I don't think I can undo it. I don't know how it got done in the first place. I'm like, oh, holy cow. So I have no idea what to do. So my next step was, I call my yoga instructor, because she's the weirdest person that I knew. And I said, do you know anybody who's like authentically psychic? And she goes, I think so. Why? And I said, well, because I'm seeing dead people. And she said, are you really? I said, yeah. Now you have to keep in mind, I'm 33 years old. I'm not known to be, odd, other than I'm like a female tech executive, which is kind of was odd at that time. But I'm not a particularly, odd person. And so she's just like, whoa, this is crazy. So she gives me this lady's name, and I call this lady, and I'm like, hey, lady, here's the deal. I'm a corporate executive, and I am seeing dead people, and I don't want to see dead people. And can you help me with this? Because I don't have the foggiest idea what to do. And the lady listens to me, and she says, I'm going to put you on my waiting list. I was like, oh, thank you. That's great.
It's
I
like calling
never heard
911.
from this woman. Never heard from this woman. So I'm like, okay. So then I don't know what to do. I'm like, I'm seeing dead people. They're trying to talk to me.
How many dead people are you seeing?
A
Like,
lot
are
of
you
dead
guys
people.
Wrongs? I mean, is it like
No, not
you're
like
waking
hundreds
up
or
and you're in
thousands.
your
Like
room?
usually it's like 1 or 2 at a time. Sometimes it's 3 or 4. Every once in a blue moon, I'd wake up and my bed would be surrounded, like in the Medium TV show. But anyway, yeah, and so I don't know what to do. I'm ignoring them. This is my first, because I'm like, I'll just ignore them. They're talking to me. I'm like typing on my computer. I'm like, I don't see you. I don't hear you. Don't. Nuh-uh. Mm-mm. So then I realize, okay, that's not working. So then I start talking to them. So I'm like, you know what? I get it. You need some kind of help. Like you need clergy, or you need a detective, or you need somebody, but it isn't me. All I can do is help you make a billing system or a website. You don't need anything I've got going on. So basically most of them would just be like, oh, you're like no help, and they would leave. And so this was the first like 3 months of this thing, and I'm still thinking, okay, it's probably a side effect and this will just go away. Like if I just wait it out, this will just go away one day, and no one will ever know, and this will just be a weird period in my life where I saw dead people, right? And then everything changed one day. Actually, it was one night. So I'm getting ready to go to bed, and this lady flies into the room. And I was starting to kind of figure out the whole dead people thing, because in the beginning I had no idea what was going on, and I couldn't even understand some of them. And so then I was kind of figuring out, like I could tell from the way they were dressed, like, oh, okay, this one's someone's recently died, and this is someone from some other era, you know. And
Ellen,
so the lady comes.
Before you go any
ahead.
further, just to allay Karen's fears or whatever, you're not talking about seeing like Walking Dead type of people, right? These are
I'm
fully,
talking about just seeing people. They look like people,
right. It's fully
but they are
composed.
transparent. They're transparent. I could see through them, so I can see the wall behind them, or whatever. And it's still kind of that way. So they're people. They just dead. I mean, I know they're dead because they're transparent. So
Okay, so
you know.
they're not like falling apart, you know.
No, they're not like, we're not talking zombies, people. We're just talking like, yeah. It's not the zombie apocalypse going on up in here. It's just dead people. But they want me to like
listening to you.
No, seriously, it wasn't terrifying. It was just weird. It was
I mean,
absolutely shocking and strange.
But when you wake up,
They didn't scare me. I can tell you stuff that did scare me, but the dead people didn't scare me. Mostly, I was just flabbergasted. I mean, I guess if you had asked me before this experience, do you believe in life after death? I would have said, yeah. But I wouldn't have thought like I would know anything about life after death ever, or whatever. And I wouldn't have, if someone said, well, what do you think that's like, I wouldn't have had any good theories. I could have made some stuff up, but anyway, so this lady comes in. She's dressed in like the 1600s garb. She doesn't look, she's not from this era, and she starts screaming at me. And that was different. Nobody had screamed at me. So far, people just asked me questions or mumbled or whatever. Mm-hmm. So she's screaming, and it's something about murder, and she's yelling at me, and I'm trying to give her my spiel. My spiel is, ma'am, I realize you need some sort of help, but I am not able to help you. And she is having none of it. She is whatever. I don't know if she thought I murdered her or I don't know. She was too hysterical for me to even understand what she was talking about. And my husband's sitting beside my bed. He sees me trying to have this dialogue with this person. He's like, what is going on? I said, I got to scream a dead lady. Screaming at me, not listening to me, won't leave, screaming. And so he's like, oh, that's not good. I said, no, not good. I don't know what to do with this. Usually they leave. This lady is not leaving. And so I'm sitting there, and she's continuing to scream. I still don't know what's, other than it's something about murder. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm starting to get frazzled. It's late. I want to go to bed. I've got a screaming lady. So I just said, God, I need something. I need like an angel or something. And that was it. Up in the left-hand corner of my room, a gigantic angel appeared, swooped down, and took this lady. And I was just like, whoa. It was the first time I'd ever seen an angel. Had no idea I could see angels. Didn't know anybody could see angels other than, like, I don't know, Joan of Arc. And so I was shocked. And my husband looks at me and goes, what just happened? I said, what do you mean? He goes, I felt this gush of air blow past me. And I said, well, that's because a gigantic angel was in the corner of the room and swooped down and took this lady. And he's like, really? And I said, he goes, where are they? I said, they're gone. I don't know. Wherever angels take dead people, I have no idea. And I said, I don't know. And so then I was like, okay, maybe this could work. Like the dead people, I've got a solution. So the next time I saw a dead person, I was like, angel, need an angel, any, and so angel would appear, take the dead person. So this was working pretty good. And I was like, okay, cool. I've got a solution. Nobody needs to know how weird I am. I see dead people. I call angels. I never even have to talk to them. It's all good. Like this is workable. And so that's going on for a while. My own little strange, private, whatever weirdness. And then one day I was coming out of the kitchen and I looked in the dining room and I realized there was an angel standing there. And I had not called an angel. There was no dead person at that moment pestering me. And I'm looking around like maybe there's a dead person here. So I'm looking around like, where's the dead person? And then I'm like, I don't see any dead people. I just see this angel just standing there. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's okay. I was like, maybe that's normal. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're just invisible, So I'm like, well, okay, thank you. Carry on. And so then next thing I know, I'm starting to see angels in different places. They're not talking to me or anything. I'm just seeing them around. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is different, but cool. I mean, I guess if you'd asked me if there were angels, I would have said great, but I didn't. I'm thinking, all right, well, this is okay, right? Whatever, we got this going on. And then slowly they started to talk to me. And at first it wasn't words. I didn't actually even know they could use words because I didn't know how it worked. And they would point at things or they would give me little signals like, oh, don't know. So if I was like ordering something like, oh, I'll have the chicken or I'll have the beef or whatever. They're like, oh, no, not the. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'll have the chicken. I'll have the chicken instead, or whatever. So they start communicating. Anyway, there's this long, crazy story about how this all evolved because we're talking about something that happened 20 years ago. When I was 33, I'm now 53. And so it's just this long, insane journey of how I got from there to here. But anyway, that's how I became an angel communicator. And things started to really evolve for me. It took me about a year and a half to come to terms with being psychic and learn how to control it. Because when I was first experiencing psychic phenomena, at first it was dead people, then it was angels, then I started seeing faeries, which I didn't know faeries existed, and that was really weird. And I thought I was be able to cope with the angels and the dead people. I was like, okay, people can maybe accept this, right? Like most people believe in life after death, but a lot of people believe in angels. Once it was faeries, I was like, oh, forget it. We're freaking faeries. I was like, oh my God, no, everyone's gonna think I'm schizophrenic. I'm not telling anybody this ever.
You've become the weirdest person you know.
I did. And to this day, I still am the weirdest person I know now. And so I was just thinking, man, I was like, if people thought I was weird going to art school, which some people in my area thought that was weird, I was like, oh man, I've just blown that out of the water by many orders of magnitude. But anyway, so I started having all this barrage of psychic phenomena, but I had no control over it. So I was just like, I'd go to meditate, which I loved meditation. I've been meditating for years. And every time I meditated, it was just this wonderful, lovely, peaceful experience. And then all of a sudden I'm meditating and bam, I'm out of my body. And I'm like in some other alternate reality or past life. And I'm like, what the heck is going on with this? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. And then I'm back in my body. It's just like crazy. And so I didn't ever think about out of body travel. And next thing I know, I'm just spontaneously doing it. So I've got out of body travel happening. I've got angels showing up. They're pointing at things and, and then I'm seeing past lives and parallel lives. And then I start feeling this just overwhelming urge to do Reiki with other people. And I'm like, I've got too much weirdness going on. I am not, no. And I don't want to tell people I've got all this barrage of crazy, right? Because, it's crazy. And I'm like, I don't even know how to begin to explain this. Like, I can't even, So I start doing Reiki with people, but I don't tell them that I'm psychic, that I see angels or whatever. And so they outed me. And what ended up happening was I would like, what Reiki is, you like laying hands on people. It's all very peaceful. And next thing I know, someone would say to me, Ellen, I'm feeling a second set of hands on me, but I'm looking around this room and you're the only person here. What is going on? I'm like, oh, I'm
Oh.
like, what? I'm like, oh my God. So I said, I'm thinking, oh, okay, do I lie? Do okay, I don't really, do I want, how am I going to explain this? And so I'm like, it's okay. No, don't worry. It's just Archangel Raphael. And they're like, uh-huh. And how would you know that? I'm like, well, cause I can see him and he's standing there and those are his hands. And they're like, really? I'm like, uh-huh. Yep. Yep. That's how that is. And so I just kept getting outed over and over. Or people would come for Reiki and then they would spontaneously start seeing angels themselves. And that was weird. And then the next thing I know, people are asking me to explain this. And I'm like, explain it? I barely understand it. Not to mention try to explain it to another person. And so I started slowly teaching people informally in 2004. And then I started developing classes in 2005 because even though I did not feel, I mean, I don't know where people get the PhD and weird stuff to teach this, but I was, I'm fairly good at explaining things. Like in the computer world, one of my jobs was I was often a liaison, or I was the communicator. I worked with a lot of nerds, so I would talk nerd, and then I would go to business analysts who talk communicated in completely different ways, and I would be often the go-between those two groups because of the way I communicate, or between customer service teams and tech teams or whatever. So I basically was used to trying to communicate complicated technology to lay people. So I basically just took that skill and transferred it to this. So now I explain super weird stuff to lay people. At least I try. So anyway, there's a super long, crazy Ellen life story in there that's sort of an encyclopedia.
Yeah. So
All right.
I've got to go backwards a little bit because you're dropping
Please do.
like, boom, 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 and then just walking like as if, oh, this is just like the most normal thing in the world. I need to ask, when you say that you see angels, are you talking
Yes.
like sweeping feathered wings and a halo in a white robe? Like, what do these angels look like to you?
That's how they look to me. So
They do.
what I've learned along the years is angels are really energetic beings and they can shapeshift. So there's other people that see them differently, but I see them as Renaissance painting, like gowns, halos, big white wings, Caucasian or, skin tone people, it's like humans, but floating, the whole thing. But I've met people who I have met one lady who told me she sees them in trench coats. I thought that was super weird. I was like, trench coats?
Wow.
Okay, but whatever.
I
I've had people come up and argue with me saying angels don't have wings. And I've had people who say they see them as orbs of light or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? They can show up any kind of way. And I asked them one time, I said, why do you show up as this way to me? And they said, because this is how you know us. And so my, of course, experience with angels would be primarily like everybody's experience with their background, their childhood. And I grew up in a conservative area with, most of my friends were some sort of version of Christian. My mom's side of the family was Baptist. My dad's side was Episcopalian. And so angels was kind of in every church, whether it was a stained glass or a tapestry or whatever, angels are just kind of everywhere. And then I go to study art. And if you've studied art, you have to start with art history, which starts out with like rocks and, cavemen scratchings. And then you move into Renaissance art, which is filled with angels. It's just like angel art, thank you, Michelangelo. But anyway, so that's why they showed up to me that way. But I have seen angels in many different ways. As a matter of fact, I think it was last year, maybe it was the year before, it was the weirdest experience. This lady, I was doing a reading for her angel comes up and it's the strangest looking angel. It had half its face was black and half its face was white. And I had never seen an angel with a painted like face. And I'm looking at this angel, I'm thinking, I'm going to try to describe this to this lady, and this is going to sound really, really super weird. And so I start telling her about how the angel looks, and she just bursts out laughing. I'm thinking, okay, I don't know if this is good or bad. And she says, that's exactly how it looks to me. And I was like, really? And I said, I have never seen an angel like this because I've always ever just seen them with skin tones. And she said, yeah, that's how mine looks. And I asked the angels later, I said, why does this lady's angel look like this? This is so non-standard. And they said, she wanted to know if you're really psychic, because she herself was psychic. And so she asked for an unusual looking, like oddball angel. And that's what I ended up seeing. So it was really, really interesting.
Your story is fascinating because everything that everybody strives to achieve, like astral project and angel communications and past life regressions and clairvoyance and blah, blah, blah. And it's just kind of, you're just walking along and, oh, sorry, you mind picking that up for me?
I know. Well, I was excited when I started realizing that there were other angel communicators. I didn't know in the beginning that. I thought, how many other people in the world talk to angels, and how in the world am I going to find these other people? And then I started realizing, oh my gosh, there's classes because I wasn't hooked into the whole new age thing. So I didn't know what was out there. And so I start finding out there's classes for angels, and, like thousands of people attend these classes and all kinds of stuff. And so I go to one of them and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to meet other angel communicators. And I discover very quickly that the way I'm psychic is not the way other people are psychic. And I just assumed that the way I was psychic was how everybody was psychic. But I figured it out really quickly. And not only did I figure it out, the other psychics did too. And they started coming to me to learn about how I'm psychic. And I was like, oh, this is weird. And so what I figured out is there's multiple psychic abilities. And most really good psychic people have 2 or 3 that dovetail together. And so it could be seeing and hearing, or feeling and knowing, or knowing and seeing. So it's some combination. And I also figured out very quickly that a lot of psychics specialize, just like artists or athletes. Like you might get an athlete who's good at basketball, but not good at golf. Or maybe they're good at whatever, I don't know, running. I'm not a sports person. They're horrible at tennis, but good at running or whatever, if that's a sport. I don't even know. Maybe it's an exercise. Anyway, so in the artist thing too, like you get these people who paint but aren't good at sculpture, or maybe they're good at drawing, but they're terrible at stained glass or whatever. Well, art psychics are like that too. You're not good at any?
Well,
is that what you said?
I can't draw a straight line.
But you sing.
Oh. Well, it's okay. Not everybody's good at everything. So what I figured out was a lot of psychics tend to fall into a category. Like they're really good at health intuition, or maybe they're really good at talking to dead people, or they're really good at solving crimes, or they're really good at whatever. And then they can't do these other things. And I realized I was doing most of these things, the vast majority of these things. Now, I don't do them all super, super well. So if somebody calls me for something and I'm not really, really good at it, I'll refer them to somebody else who I know is really good at that thing. I'm good at 2 things. I'm good at healing, and I'm good at talking to angels. And I'm okay with fairies. I don't know. Anyway, fairies are funny, and they mostly just ask for candy anyway. So I don't, but they do.
Fairy then.
Yeah, they love candy. Oh my God. And they're very specific about what candies too. And I'm like, I don't even have that. I'm like, but I can go get you whatever. Anyway. So yeah, so it's wild. So I sort of learned, I've learned a lot of little things along the way. And then I started realizing that, I started getting this impulse to teach, and I thought, oh man. And all I could imagine was a classroom full of people wearing tie-dye, smelling like patchouli. And I was going to be standing up in the front in a business suit, and like, I can't relate to these people. They can't relate to me, but that's not what happens. I don't have any tie-dye wearing people show up. Everybody basically shows up as like me. They're all sort of type A recovering perfectionist organizer,
I love though that you worked in computers and stuff, because so many people out there that have what you would call, I guess, regular, mainstream jobs or whatever, but they're interested, but they're like, oh, I don't want to be the weirdo. So we've had so many people come on and say, oh yeah, I was an accountant, or I had this, PR agency or whatever. And I love it because it gives everyone else, the chance to see, oh, okay, you can be a normal person and still be interested in this or still have these experiences.
You can. One of the unusual things about me as a psychic is that I actually keep my abilities turned off most of the time. And I've met a lot of other psychics who can't even fathom doing that. To them, it would be like going around blind,
Oh, wow.
because they've been psychic all their life and all they know is like they can't even imagine it. But for me, I find it distracting. So I don't want to walk my kid to the bus and be picking up on everybody's whatever and talking to everybody's dead relatives. I don't want all that. I don't want to go to the grocery store and be bothered by whoever, the butcher's grandma who wants me to tell him should date a good Catholic girl and not this Jewish girl or whatever. And these things used to happen when I had no control, like all kinds of manner of weird stuff would come up. But anyway, so yes, I know you guys have a million questions and I want to answer all of them if I can.
Well, I don't think we're going to have time for all of them.
I know.
But since you're on a topic, so you brought up the topic about people are psychic in different ways. And we
Yep.
kind of teased it a little bit, very like nebulously, that you had something to tell us about.
I do.
On our pre-interview call, you mentioned that I was psychic. But then
You are.
you withheld the information of how I was psychic and said, "Oh, I'll tell you on the show." So I have been going sleepless nights, wandering around the
Jumping at the
city,
bit.
wondering
Oh.
how in the world. So I need to ask you, first of all, I'm psychic, right? First of
I
all.
know. Shocking, isn't it?
Second of
I
all,
think once I explain it, you'll understand.
okay.
So here's the thing. Most people are psychic. They just don't know it, because psychic ability is a human ability. It's not a spiritual gift. It's not magic. It's an ability that most of us have. But some people are gifted and some people are challenged, just like with arts or athletics. Some people aren't very good at athletics. That would be me. I would be terrible at athletics and really, really gifted at psychic stuff. And, and that's just kind of how it is. I'm pretty good at art too. But you are claircognizant. Claircognizant is clear knowing. And knowing is when you have an understanding of something with no logical leap. There's nothing that told you logically to do this. So for instance, I'm primarily claircognizant and I have psychic sight. So I have knowing and sight. But there are other people I know who have hearing and feeling, and we'll get to you in a minute, Karen. So you're interesting. You've got a interesting little thing going on.
Yes, she
Yes.
does. I've been telling her that
Got
for
an
years.
interesting thing going on there. But anyway, but with you, Will, there's probably, if you think back in your life, there's probably a bunch of times where you knew to call someone, check on something, or all of a sudden you were doing something and something came to your mind and you're like, oh, I forgot to do that piece of it. Oh, I better, double check this, whatever spreadsheet or whatever it is. That is claircognizance. And I had that when I was in the computer industry, but I didn't know that's what it was. I thought I was just smart.
Right.
And there were times when it was obvious that it was something psychic, and other people actually noticed it more than I did. So I remember I joined this technical team and I worked at a very, very big bank that you would recognize the name of if I told you. And I was on this technical team and the call center went down, not working. So we got thousands of people sitting around with headsets on like this and nothing coming in. And hours are going by and my poor boss is running around red in the face because he is super stressed. And he comes up to me and he says, "I'm going to tell you what's going on." And I'm thinking, oh, okay. I've been on the team 2 weeks. I don't think I'm going to be able to fix a whole call center gone down. But I thought, well, I probably can't help him. But the thing I can do is I can listen to him. And maybe that alone will help alleviate his stress. So I'm just sitting there and I'm listening to him tell me what they've been doing and trying, and all this didn't work and that didn't work and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I said, oh, it's 2 problems. And I said, let's divide the team. Team A does this, team B does that. And I jumped in and got involved. It's not like I had no experience. I had experience. I just was new to this team. And so we start running around and we're trying to get it. And at the end of the day, I'm packing my stuff up. The call center's back. Everything's good. And he comes up to me and he says, "How did you know?" And I said, "How did I know what?" And he said, "How did you know it was 2 problems?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "Probably something you said tipped me off." And he's like, I don't think so. And so that kind of thing would happen to me pretty frequently. But I thought, like for instance, I was a negotiator. So I would often be in the room and I was I was young. I looked a lot younger than I do now. And a lot of people thought I was like the admin assistant, not realizing I was the negotiator. And so, cause I'm only 5'1", so like this little teeny blonde girl that shows up and I'm going to negotiate your multi-million-dollar contract. But I knew exactly how to, I would be in the room and I would know who was with me, who was against me, who was going to try to scam us, who was going to gouge us. And I knew exactly what to do to fix it. So for instance, I was given this contract and I worked for a very big bank that bought more data than any company in the whole world. And I was in charge of the renegotiating this contract. It was a 7-year multi-million-dollar contract. And my boss says, here you go, renegotiate this. I said, okay. I said, what's the fair market value of this data? He goes, I don't know. I said, okay, well, all right. So what I did was I thought, all right, well, how am I negotiate? They're not, as soon as I call up, my name is known in the industry. Like I was the demographic database coordinator for this company. So my name is everywhere in the world of demographics, and they all automatically know this girl has, is going to be in charge of millions of dollars. So they're going to gouge me. They're not going to give me a fair market value. They're going to give me whatever, double, triple, whatever. So I have to find fair market value. So I started thinking about what I could do. And all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute, there's the CEO of a company in New York City. I had met him a few times. I knew he worked with the CEO of our company and some other vice presidents. So he was like vetted basically. Mm-hmm. And so I called my boss and I said, do you care if I call this dude and get his opinion? He goes, I don't care, whatever, And so I called him up and I said, here's what I need you to do. I need you to take this contract and anonymously get the price. You don't have to negotiate. I'll negotiate, but I need you to get the price for this amount of data for this amount of time. And he dropped the price dropped dramatically because they didn't know it was me behind the face. Yeah. And the thing is, I like to think, back then I used to think, oh, I'm so smart. Oh, Ellen, you're so smart. No, that was divine inspiration. That wasn't me. I don't, I'd never done that type of contract negotiation before, and I'd never worked with that guy before. He tried to hire me afterwards.
Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of psychicness that you say I have. So you're saying that I'm not smart. I'm just claircognizant. That's
no, you're smart very and clearly. But you have something else too. So you also have clairsentience, which is feeling. And there's two types of feeling. So one is feeling what other people are feeling emotionally. So you can sense what's going on when you take the pulse of a room and the pulse of a person. And the other type is where you can feel in your physical body what's going on in someone else's body. Like if they have a headache, you have a headache. If they have chest pain, you have chest pain, that kind of thing. So you have the first one. But yours is interesting because sometimes when I see people who have feeling, they just have feelings. And sometimes people with knowing just have knowing. And sometimes people have them coupled. And yours is coupled. So that means you could probably walk into a space and there's a bunch of people there and you could probably feel that someone is uncomfortable and have a sense of what it's about. So for instance, you could walk in and say, that guy is depressed. He's got some financial things. That guy is depressed. He's got marital problems. That guy is depressed because he didn't get a promotion.
Wow. I thought we were just kind of playing a game, like figuring out someone's story. So it's very interesting that you say that because I think Karen will remember there was a time when someone that we knew had passed away and we were asked, I wonder if there's a message that we should give to this person's kids or something along those lines. I don't want to get into much detail, but all of a sudden I said, this is what this kid is supposed to know. And Karen asked me, well, how do you know? I mean, is he talking to you? No, it just came to me. Like, it's a knowing. Yep. So that does indeed ring very, very true with me. Ellen, you are scary.
Now let's get to Karen. That's going to be fun.
Yes,
so you have a very interesting aura, and that's one thing I can do. I can see the aura. So you are what I call a super empath. And I don't even know if you know how empathic you are because it looks like you're so empathic that you shut down and you can get overwhelmed. And so an empath is a person that has a lot of feeling and it comes in not just emotional feelings, but energies, like if I bet you I could beam healing energy to you right now and you'd feel it like that. And you probably feel the energy of places and situations and circumstances and all kinds of whatnot. And one of my gifts, and this is part of why I'm a teacher, is because I have the unique ability to see how someone else's psychic know exactly what it is, to the degree it is, and if it is, my technical term is wonky. So you both have a lot going on, but it's different. It just shows up in really different ways. And if you wanted to, each of you could develop it. Just saying.
Nice to drop that little nugget there. So I'm going to test something here, because in one of our episodes a long time ago, we talked about auras and things like that. And I thought I could kind of sort of see. So my question to you, hang on, I'm going to write something down so that I'm not just, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So we all have our auras, right? Our energy fields.
Yes.
Sometimes people have them really close in, other have them like really expansive to the point where like,
sure.
So
they're huge.
What is yours like?
Mine?
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, mine's pretty large. I'm a small person, but I have a really big energy system. Okay. But I was born with big
So I'm looking at you.
That's your knowing.
Yes.
So that's your knowing. Mine's really big.
And I'm seeing, like, I don't even see the top of it. I like, it's beyond the screen right now, which is pretty wild. So,
yes, that's correct. Yeah, mine's really large. So my husband sees auras, and I shouldn't have outed him. Well, he'll be okay with it.
Helen.
So I know. Sorry, Jeff. Love you. So he sees auras. So when we first met, which we met on a Match.com, we met on Match, and I was coming around the corner. He saw my aura before he saw me. He turned and looked. He's like, "Oh my God!" And then all of a sudden, I came around, and he was just like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on with this lady?" And so anyway, it's very, very interesting. But yes, my aura is very, very large.
And that, for those that are only listening to the show, I did write down on a notebook, really big is what I wrote down.
Really big. You did write down really big. But actually, you two both have really interesting auras. And, auras are fascinating. You could do a whole thing on just auras. But yeah, Karen, what do you want to ask about your psychic ability? Because you're just questions are popping up in your aura all over.
Oh boy, a lot of questions, and it is.
I know. I can see it.
I think that was just dinner last night.
I know. I mean, I when I hear someone that has a sad story, I'll just burst into tears sometimes. I mean, it could be a stranger.
Yep.
It's
super empath.
It's hard for me sometimes.
But not just that, Ellen.
Yes.
When you say you see angels, right? You talk to angels. I do too. I see one angel, and that is this person sitting right next to me, because she truly is an angel on this planet. She cares so much. Her heart is so big. She cares for just everybody. She's an amazing human being. She loves everybody. She wants to help everyone. And I'm assuming that comes from her empathic stuff, because she's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's not just her empathic stuff. It's also her soul, and it's who she is.
Yeah,
and because you feel angel. What the deal is with her.
I know that she's an angel. I know that she is an angel that has incarnated in this body. I'm telling you right now.
I would agree.
Yes.
The wings on her back give it away.
Yes. Hey, validation, Karen.
I wasn't going to out you, Karen, but thanks, Will. You just outed Karen.
Hey,
so
that is what we do here in the show. We just out everybody else.
Okay.
Karen too.
Very, very funny. But yeah, so Karen, what I would suggest for you is, before you ever leave your house to go anywhere, I don't care if you're going to the grocery store, I don't care where you're going, you ask Archangel Michael to put a shape-shifting shield around you so that only love can pass. So when you're doing whatever, and these people who come up to you and just start telling you stuff about themselves, because I know they do, just rando people, it will not be overwhelming to you.
Okay.
And you'll be able to process it.
And how can I use this to help people, or what can I do?
Oh Lord, well, that's a whole nother question. So that's life purpose. I'll tell you, the question I get most often, hands down, well, aside from what angels look like, is what is my life purpose? And it's the question I can answer the least. And I ask the angels, why can I not, like, because I think one day I had like 5 people come in. What's my life purpose? What's my life purpose? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm honest. If I don't know, I'll just tell you I don't know. And then I had this lady walk in and she said, what's my life purpose? And I said, you're supposed to open a spiritual art gallery. Just like that. And she started laughing. She goes, oh yeah, I know. And when she left, I said, why this one lady, I knew her purpose. Nobody, I didn't know these other people. And they said, because she already knew it. And I was like, okay. So what's good for, what helps me is if somebody has an idea, or even they have a kind of sort of idea, then I can help them with the details. So for instance, if someone's going to be a healer, is it like, are you going to be an acupuncturist or chiropractor? Are you going to go to med school? Are you going to, I don't know, whatever, become a shaman? What are you going to do? Become a Reiki practitioner? I can help with the details if they have an idea, but if they have no idea, I don't know. You have ideas though. You have ideas.
I do have idees.
I know, I can see that. Some people say I'm psychic.
Wait. Now it's my turn to go, whoa.
So we don't have to like just totally out you on the show or anything, but yes, there are things, but everything hasn't unfolded yet. You both have an interesting purpose. I think this podcast is going to blow up. It's
From
going to
your mouth to
blow up.
So one of the things I don't like to do with people who are psychic is ask questions that I don't want to know the answers to, right? Because I might hear an answer that I don't like hearing. But there's one question that I need to ask just because it's very timely. And of course, you may not come to you at all, but we are looking to expand the message that we're giving on the show in a very particular way. And I'm curious if you see whether or not something is going to come of those plans that that we are currently manifesting. Not trying. We are currently manifesting. Is that too vague? Do you need more information? Okay.
Nope, not too vague. I get a lot of vague. Actually, I prefer vague. It leaves me more room to tap in. So are you looking to do a television show?
Oh my God, you are scary. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it's very likely to happen, but it's probably not going to happen exactly the way you're thinking. So I don't know what the normal channels of that world is. Like I'm a little, tapped into that, whatever, television thing. Because I've got some, some of those people from that world in my, who are my clients. But I don't understand the workings behind the scene, of how it works. But it looks like the key, the linchpin, is the executive producer. And once you have, it looks like there's 3 people. There's like 3 gateways they're showing me, 3 different people. And once you get through those, your show that'll be it. And you have the show, and the show will be super popular.
Interesting, because we're not looking to put it on a network, like a major network.
It's going to end up on television.
And it's just so happens that I'm an executive producer. So that's gate number 1.
You're one. There's 2 other people.
I'm a non-executive producer.
You're going to be an executive producer.
Yes.
Of
definitely.
This show.
Yeah, absolutely.
She will be.
Yep.
Yeah. You're going to end up on TV. You're going to end up on whatever, cable TV, I guess.
Fantastic. That's
it's going to be popular. And then there's going to be some unique aspect. You're going to change it a little bit. You're going to change the show. So it's going to start out in one format, and it's going to kind of progress to something else. And you're also going to have a spinoff of some sort.
I like talking to you, Ellen.
Too.
Yeah. It looks good. It looks good.
Oh, that's awesome. Good to hear. We have so much more to talk to you about, but we have so much not enough time to go over.
You can always have me back.
We would love that.
You know what? I love it when someone actually reads my mind enough to know that I'm going to come back. We would love it for you to come back, because there's so much more on the table we haven't even touched on. I'm really curious to talk to you about the doctors that are poking and prodding at you, that kind of stuff.
Well, the poking and prodding hasn't exactly occurred yet, but the poking and prodding process is underway. So I work with some medical doctors, different types of ones all over the country, mostly in the United States. And they find me. I don't find them. They find me, and usually it's because I'm kind of the last stop on the train station of like alternative medicines. It's like you go to the normal doctors, if they can't help you, you end up with some kind of alternative doctor, like a functional medicine doctor or I don't know what they're all called, holistic medical doctor, one of those sort of people. And some of those people then refer to me. And then, if we get lucky, I can figure out what it is. And then it helps them, cuts down the amount of time it takes. But anyway, I've got lots of interesting little experiences with that. But one of my doctors said, because I started working a lot with them when COVID happened, I get premonitions, and I never know what they'll be about, or when they'll come in. Sometimes they're just goofy. Like sometimes they're just rando celebrities that I'm like, I don't care what that person's got going on. Thank you for sharing some rando information about someone who's not even my client. At least if they could be my client, it would be helpful. But I was like, all right, whatever. But sometimes I get them about world events or politics or, natural disasters or whatever. I got a ton of stuff for COVID. And it was weird because COVID is weird. And I got it before they even called it a pandemic. And so I was calling my doctors around the country and saying, look, this is super weird stuff. And this is it. This is like the deal. And I was trying to describe it to them, and they were just like, what are you talking about? Because, nobody, some of them were like, Ellen, it's just a coronavirus. There's lots of coronaviruses. It's still going to be okay. Don't panic. And I'm like, nope. It's not normal. This is not normal. This is very, very buckle your seatbelt, people. This is not, and I had people tell me, oh, this thing's going to blow over in a couple weeks. I was like, not blowing over in a couple of weeks. And I remember looking at the TV. I was standing there next to Jeff, who's my husband. He said, how many people do you think will die of this? I said, 500,000 to 2 million. And he said, in the world? I said, no, in the United States. And he goes, Ellen, that's crazy. That's way too many people. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's what it's going to be. And I said, and whether it's 500,000 or 2 million depends upon, what people do and how they respond to it, and whether they get vaccines out quickly or not, or whatever, all the many gazillion factors that go into this crazy thing we've just been going through. But anyway, so after that, especially within the first 6 months, when all of a sudden all of these bizarre things I said were going to happen just start happening like that. Because I said, you're going to deal with blood clots. You're going to deal with, it's airborne. They didn't even know it was airborne when I first started. It's airborne. It's airborne. It's airborne. Everybody needs masks. And then they're like, no, nobody needs masks. Don't get masks because you're, I'm like, oh, man, please, somebody listen to me. I'm like, if you people would just listen. But anyway, so one of my doctors said, I think we need to do a study on you. I'm like, okay. I said, well, I'm happy to do whatever. Probably the easiest way to study me is that because I can see in and around the body, I could see something. I don't necessarily know what it is because I'm not medically trained, but I can see things, and then they could go do an X-ray or an MRI or and verify what I can observe. Probably the most dramatic time that happened for me was I got a call from a medical doctor who ran a brain injury clinic. And he said, this family has requested you. This doctor has verified you. We would like you to come in. Please come and see our center and see if you feel comfortable doing whatever you do. Strange lady. He didn't say strange lady. So I show up at the thing.
It and you felt it, right?
Yeah. And so, yeah, exactly. And so I show up at this center expecting to meet this doctor who had called me because, he asked me to come in, but I don't get him. I get some other doctor, and this other doctor clearly thinks I'm a total wackadoodle. So I'm like, oh dear, here we have doctor who thinks I'm a wackadoodle. Great. So I go to his office and I'm trying to explain, as best I can to someone who thinks you're crazy that, I'm like, well, I'm not medically trained. I'm a lay person, but my ability is I can see in and around the body. And he's like, I'm getting a lot of ahas. Mm-hmm. And so then he says, well, let me walk you around. So he gives me a little tour, and then he shoves me in a room with a comatose man who has taken a gunshot to the brain and can't speak.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, well, alrighty then. I wasn't planning to just like jump in kind of like this. I was sort of thinking I was going to do a meet and greet and we were going to discuss this, but I guess this guy didn't know what to do with me. So he just shoves me in this room. And so I sit down and I start evaluating this man's condition. And then I realized very quickly that he is telepathic and could talk to me. So I'm like, oh, well, this is very helpful. So then I start dialoguing a little bit with him, even though he couldn't speak much. Mm-hmm. And so he starts telling me things, and then I'm about 10 minutes with him, and then I leave and I go back to the doctor's office, and he's like, okay, what's your whatever? And I said, all right, so I'm going to remember, I'm not medically trained. I'm just going to explain to you his, what I perceive. And so I start first with the medical stuff. Like, this is what, the areas of the brain I see damage and so forth. Now, keep in mind, this guy took a gunshot to the brain 20 years ago. So there's no way from the outside that I would be able to see what's going on with his brain, other than being a psychic, right? So I'm telling him, and the doctor's sitting there, and he's becoming pale, and I'm thinking, oh, this guy doesn't look so good. Maybe he's going to throw up. And he finally says, just wait a minute. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, let me just wait. So he turns around and he's got one of those big old L-shaped desks. So he starts typing away on his computer, and I'm thinking, well, how rude. I'm trying to explain this to you. I guess you think I'm super weird and you're just going to do your emails or whatever you're doing. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm like, what the heck, dude? And so then he starts printing stuff, and then he's like, just a minute. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm like, all right, this is weird. So then he grabs these papers and he starts grabbing a highlighter and starts highlighting stuff. And he's like, just a minute. And I'm like, this is very strange, but whatever, I'll just wait. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden he goes, I'm not supposed to do this. And I said, do what? And he said, here. And he shoves the papers at me. And I look at them, and it's the medical paperwork for the guy, the brain injury, who I didn't even know who the brain injured dude was. So he gives me this. He goes, everything that you just said, everything I highlighted is right here. He goes, I said, well, now I'm about to tell you some other things. He goes, yeah. I said, you've been playing the same country music for this dude for 20 freaking years.
Change
He
the
hates
record.
it. He hates it. And he goes, and he's like, oh, you're right, we have. I said, why would you think anyone would want to listen to the same music for 20 freaking years? And he's like, I don't know. I said, well, he can hear. He's not deaf. I said, he can't talk. I said, he can't really see very well. I said, he can make out a little bit of shadow, but he can't really see. I said, he can't speak in almost any meaningful way. I said, but he knows who all of you are. He can hear all of you. He can smell all of you. And I said, and he does not want to listen to any more of this music ever again for the rest of his life. And I said, and you've been putting him in a wheelchair every day and wheeling him out by some sort of door where people are coming in and out. I said, he is blind. He cannot sit there and look out the window. All he's getting is like this draft of air. And he goes, oh my God, that's what we do. We sit him by this door every day. I said, I don't know why you're doing that, but he doesn't want to be there. If people come in and out, he has to smell their lunch. And if they've been smoking cigarettes, I was like, he hates this. And the guy's just like looking at me like I've just grown two heads, right? And so anyway, we actually became really, really good friends after this crazy, because he's just like, he's shocked, right? Mm-hmm. And so the last day I'm there, because I went in for months. I did some just volunteer with this group. Of course, they it's under the radar, whatever. And the last day I was there, I was getting ready to leave, and he said, "Can you really see anybody's body?" I said, "Yeah, pretty much." I was like, "Why? Do you have something you want me to look at?" And he said, well, what do you see for me? And this dude was the picture of health, like absolutely worked out, looked really healthy. And I said, you have something in your lungs. I said, I don't know what it is, but it's like emphysema, but it isn't. He went, oh my God, I do have that. And then he names it. It's blah, 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 whatever the thing was.
I've heard about that before.
Yeah. You have the bloody blah. It's really serious. And you have to get a special goggles for that or whatever. But yeah, so I get to have all these fun. Doctors are fun people to work with, because they either find me and they're really, really interested in something different because they know what they got going on is only part of the equation in healing, or they are just don't know what to do with me or make of me. And then I start interacting with them and they're like, oh my, what? That kind of thing. I had one of my guys was a chief of staff at a major medical center. And when I called him to tell him, I said, look, we got this whole COVID thing. And he's like, call me and tell me. I said, okay. So I called him up and I said, here's the deal, blah, blah, blah. And I tell him all the stuff. And he's like, nah, you're not always right, Ellen, right? Not always right. I was like, no, I'm not always right.
But almost always.
But mostly right.
Yeah. And so about a year later, he's like, I won't really question that again. This was such a weird life transition for me. Now, of course, you're getting me. I'm 18 years into being a professional psychic, so it's just a different experience. Like I just kind of live it, But coming out was really tough for me. I had a very, very hard time. I didn't want to embarrass my family. I didn't want to destroy my own career. I kept thinking, well, maybe I'll go back to project management, because I loved my career before I was a psychic, but I couldn't. There's just not enough hours in the day to be a professional weirdo and a project manager. It's just, it's just not whatever. So here I am. So this is my strange journey. But anyway, wow. I have many stories to tell.
We're going to go ahead and put in our show notes links to your website and things like that, because I urge anyone who is interested in Ellen's story to go to her website and learn, because we haven't even touched on the fact that you actually use angels to help you heal.
Yes,
and
I do.
And you teach a certain type of angels. And we haven't even had a chance to check that out. So if you're interested in Ellen's story, interested in learning about how she uses angels to heal, the direct link to her website is on our show notes. So if you listen to this on a phone, just hit that little I button and you'll see the link there. If you listen to it on the radio, go to skepticmetaphysician.com and go to her episode page and you'll see the links there. And when we have you back, we'll have you actually go into that with us, as well as your connection kind of to the Harry Potter world.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
People love that stuff. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's almost a whole episode.
So, I can't wait.
Little teases for the audience. So look around, keep listening to the show, because you never know when Ellen's going to come back, and we'll be talking about all these amazing things. She has lots of stories, if you haven't noticed by now. Lots of really great stories that she can share with us as well. So Ellen, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. The hour, it's been over an hour.
I know, it feels like it's like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You guys are so easy. So I look forward to coming back. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you can. Thank you for coming on.
We look forward to having you back.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you for coming along on this journey of discovery with us. If you know someone that would benefit from hearing the messages we shared on this episode or any of our others, we'd really love it if you would do them and us a favor and share the show with them. It's super easy, and you might just help change someone's life. And if you're listening to this on the radio and you missed something, not to worry, all of our episodes, including this one, can be found at skepticmetaphysician.com, where you can watch the videos or even send us email or voicemail directly from the site. Now, we absolutely love feedback, and we are sad that we haven't heard from you yet. So please go to skepticmetaphysician.com and send us an email or a voicemail. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode as much as we have. That's all for now, but we'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians. Until then, take care.